Hi everyone, welcome to Faces Behind Papers. After a 2-month break, we're back with a new episode. Today, my guest is Benjamin Scott. He's an assistant professor at Boston University. His work focuses on developing and applying new technologies to study the neural basis of cognition and complex learned behavior. He was actually giving one of the neuroscience courses I took when I was doing an exchange program at Boston University. And I was really happy when he accepted joining the podcast. So welcome, Professor Scott.
Yeah, thank you so much. Nice to be here and nice to see you again, Rana.
Yeah. So first, I would like to talk about your journey in academia. So I know that you got your bachelor's in biology from the University of Chicago and went on to do a PhD in neuroscience at MIT. But to hear more about the behind the scenes, like before choosing academia, what were the other options that you were considering and why did you choose it? In other words, did you choose academia or did academia choose you?
Yeah, I think academia chose me. It certainly wasn't my goal to become a professor. When I was in college, I was really interested in research. So that got me hooked, and I kind of kept following that, and it led me here to where I am. The other things I was considering, a medical doctor was one idea. I think I guess I wasn't very career-minded. I just kind of was doing what I was doing and kept following that.
So did you have any research experience when you were doing your bachelor's degree? Is that what how you got interested in research or?
Yeah, I think since I was a little kid, I was interested in biology. I was interested in plants and animals and human physiology. And when I was an undergraduate, I was at the University of Chicago. There were a lot of research opportunities there. And so I worked in several different laboratories and figure out what I liked and what I didn't like. And then that started my path.
And looking back, have there been any obstacles along the way? I don't know, when you were applying to PhD programs or after your PhD when you were looking for different positions, things like that.
Yeah, I feel like nothing. It sort of feels like there's always obstacles. There's always one more mountain to climb or always one more boulder in your way. I think applying to grad school was one of the periods when I felt that things were most challenging, just because I think it's probably even more competitive now, but until you have that offer, the whole world of research just feels closed to you. I don't know what it was like when you were applying, but when I was applying, it definitely felt like that. And then, in my field, it's very typical to do a postdoc. And so the transition from postdoc to professor felt similarly challenging. A lot of people judging you, a lot of applying for things and not being awarded them. So yeah, and that can be tough to go through.
Okay. And where did you do your postdoc?
At Princeton University.
And afterwards, because I honestly don't know how it works.
Yeah.
After the postdoc, at least. So you apply for vacancies for positions, or do you apply for funding separately? Or how does that work in the US?
So the main thing is to apply for professorship once they become available. So the jobs are all posted in the late summer or early fall, and people make lists of them, and you go through them and you see what would fit with your research interests. Everybody does that. Some people apply for transition funding. So this is usually funding for the last year of your postdoc and maybe the first year of your independent position, but not everyone does. It's not required.
Okay, I see. And moving on to your research field, what drew you to what you're doing right now to neuroscience in general, I would say? Would that be correct?
Yeah. I consider myself a neuroscientist. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. So, I guess I think I've always had two big interests that have always kind of captured my attention. One is in biology, the sort of physical, chemical, and biological basis of living things. So, really understanding the mechanism of how things in the natural world exist and solve problems. That felt very tangible to me. That felt very real and immediate, learning that there are these things called cells and they do certain things with, they have enzymes that catalyze reactions. And then on the other hand, sort of more philosophical aspects of human experience. What is a thought? Why do I find certain types of music so compelling? So those were sort of my two interests. And I found the particular subfield of neuroscience that I'm in allows me to combine them together and understand how they relate to each other. Or at least that's the goal. It provides the dream of putting those two things together.
Okay, I see. And so how has been your journey in neuroscience so far, like in terms of your like specific research interests within? Like did you more or less stay in the same broad topic? Did you have like a radical shift from your PhD to postdoc or from postdoc to your position now?
I would, in the grand scheme, some people switch completely. Like they start off with a PhD in chemistry and then go in and study consciousness or psychology. I had a fairly moderate shift in topic. So my PhD is in developmental biology, and my postdoc and current research focuses primarily on perception and decision making. And so I'd say compared to my immediate colleagues, it's been a fairly big shift, but compared with the grand scheme of possible shifts, it's pretty modest.
And what research questions are you currently trying to explore?
Yeah, so we're interested in decision making, in particular how you make decisions under unreliable sources of information. And the key question that we're trying to address is how do you know you have enough information to make your decision? So are you the type of person who goes with the first piece of information? Are you impulsive? Do you make decisions quickly? Or are you more conservative and wait for more information to make a more deliberate decision about a particular situation? So what governs the fast, sort of inaccurate, kind of gut decisions from sort of more longer deliberative decisions?
Okay. And you're looking at the neural basis of this?
Yeah, we want to know the cells that control this process.
And like what excites you the most about your research field now?
I think the thing that gives me the most excitement is that we're starting to get to a point where we can control behavior from cellular and molecular perspective. So the decision making seems to be a complex process. Intuitively, it sounds like you have volitional control over this process. And so, and yet at the same time, we're able to control it by modifying the activity of different cell types in the brain. And so I think it provides a sort of situation where you can go from cells and molecules to complex behavior. And I find that very satisfying.
Yeah, and that's a big jump, no? Like from the cellular to circuit level, and then as at least as far as I can remember from the courses, like usually you have the cells, and then you have the circuits between the different parts of the brain, and then you try to link that to behavior. But now you're talking about this direct link. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I think it's a big jump and it
Yeah.
fails a lot of the time, but when it does succeed, it feels like you really discovered something.
Ah, okay. I see. And when you're talking about these, like, as I understand, like individual differences between people in terms of like how they make decisions under uncertainty, are you also interested in like the neural basis of those differences or like these individual differences between people? Or is it more like I don't know, like a trait level, more psychological? thing?
Yeah, so I think, yeah, it's a good question. So there definitely seem to be multiple components controlling this behavior. So across different individuals, you definitely see that some individuals have a preference for slower, more deliberative type of decision making, whereas others are maybe more quick to make a judgment. But you also see that, within the course of a day, individuals will fluctuate, and individuals with different sort of neuropsychiatric conditions like autism might exhibit different types of decision-making processes. Um, so there's environmental influences. There may be genetic influences or other individual variability. So it's sort of there's we certainly have a lot of work to do to map out all of these different components.
Yeah, yeah. And in many like internalizing psychopathology as well, there's this indecisiveness part to it, right? Like people become more indecisive, especially at least not everyone, of course, but it's one of the reflections of like the manifestation of the psychological distress. So it's relevant in that sense, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I'm definitely I'm coming at it. I'm not a clinician, so I'm coming at it from a different angle. But it
Mm-hmm.
does certainly people have described the sort of these these different neuropsychiatric disorders, the sort of symptoms that you see sort of day to day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a there's these neuropsychiatric conditions can alter decision processes, or they themselves may be affecting the same circuits.
Mm, okay. I see. And another question I had was if you had all the funding and resources in the world, what would you try to answer? Does that question make sense to you
Yeah,
or
totally. No, it's a great question. But yeah, wow. That's a long conversation. What would I do? Well, I'm very interested in manipulating and reading out moment by moment the nervous system. So I think I would invest in new technologies to alter neural activity or monitor it in living humans and animals.
I see. And you're also using like bioengineering to develop new technologies like in your work, right?
Yes,
Already.
that's part of our research agenda. Yeah.
And more into your opinions about academia in general. How do you think academia has changed over the years? Are there any areas that you think should be improved? Like, for example, the quality of articles, like the grant proposal funding processes, or like the psychology education, like bachelor's or at the PhD level? It's a really broad question, I
Yeah,
realize, but you can pick one of them and.
yeah, it's a good question. I think, I've kind of changed along with academia since I've been in it, so it's hard to know what's different about it now versus how my relationship to it. I think one thing my gut would say, I think we need to fail more. I think we need to be comfortable with failure. I think we need to take more risks. And I think things have gotten competitive, so to the point where people are want to go for a sure thing. And sure things are great, but I think you also need people to be doing risky things. And I think that's how we learn both as individuals by making mistakes and as field by making mistakes.
Mhm.
Of course, they're not mistakes, right? That's research. That's the process of uncovering hidden things. Is sometimes you look under the rock and you don't find what you expect.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I guess like this increase in all these like articles in psychology, especially, I feel like it also reflects this like going for the sure thing and always finding something. And I mean, there's also a tendency to publish the significant results. I feel like that also reflects like this need to always publish,
Hmm.
but at the same time you leave no room for making mistakes. At least maybe the system is also contributing to that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it does seem like the system promotes discoveries that are consistent with what you think to be true. And that type of bias can lead to problems with replicability. So I think giving people a bit of a longer leash so that they can have the time to make mistakes and come back from it. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing that you have PhD students that you can maybe leave a room for them to make mistakes. And another question, who is your favorite researcher? Like, is there anyone inside academia that you look up to, and maybe in your PhD years or maybe even now?
Gosh, yeah, well, yeah, it's a good question. I mean, historically, I would say Sidney Brenner is one of my scientific heroes. Sidney Brenner won the Nobel Prize for um, C. elegans, the using C. elegans to study neuroscience and also development. But he also discovered that the DNA code is a triplet code, and he also discovered mRNA.
Hmm.
So, really has had a history of one groundbreaking discovery after another. I like when scientists are brave and start new lines of research. I also like scientists who, question well held assumptions. Someone who's really poking at something from a different angle. I guess the
Mm-hmm.
outsiders.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess like you also learn how to do research and your view towards research through observing other people around you as well. Your supervisors or other PhD students doing your PhD. At least for me, so far, the way I'm seeing research, the way even like reading articles is by like observing or like having conversations with my supervisor, etc. Um, so I guess that also had an impact on you.
Oh, yeah, 100%. So,
Yeah.
right. So I guess I mentioned a kind of a legendary historical
No,
figure.
no, no. That
Uh,
also works, but just wanted to ask.
no, but of course, yeah, I'd say, I mean, there have been so many people who, have given me the excitement to keep going through conversations, who have taught me new ways of thinking about a problem or new technical skills to advance the problem, who have been role models showing me how we could better interact with each other and work together to solve problems. Yeah, there's a long
Yeah,
list of them,
the
but
list. Yeah.
I think, one of the reasons I chose this field and not say something else is because I really liked the people in it. And
Mm,
so, I mean, I'm a strong believer in uh, finding situations where you like the people around you, you want to talk to them, you respect their ideas, and you have a good working relationship. And
yeah.
yeah, so I'm really pleased how that's turned out.
And moving on to a completely different question, what is your typical day and week like? Like overall, how much time do you spend on research, teaching, or I know that professors also have a lot of administrative things to do. How do you divide that work over a week or in general?
Yeah, it fluctuates through the school year. I would say I would say it's probably uh, 30, maybe 30% teaching in a lecture setting, 30% teaching in the lab, which is also doing research, and 30% um, kind of administration tasks, which are both my service to the university, but also making sure the lab is running and things aren't breaking
Hmm.
and things like that. Yeah.
Okay. And out of these things, like, what do you enjoy most about your job? And are there parts that you are kind of like, maybe I don't like this that much?
Yeah, I would say of those three, the administrative work is probably my least favorite, although necessary, I think. My favorite is meeting with students, talking about ideas, working with the trainees. It's my favorite part.
Okay, I see. And for people who are interested in your field, can you suggest one paper that should be read by students who are interested in what you're doing?
Gosh, that's a good question. One paper that I would suggest. How far back can we go?
As much as you like. And then I'll put the link to the podcast episode, and people can reach it.
Well, let me pick a recent one then.
Yeah.
I think there's a new paper out from the Allen Institute. It's a consortium paper, so there's many, many authors. But it's the first detailed census of cell types in the mammalian brain. So people have been working on cell types for over 100 years. You know, Ramon Cajal won the Nobel Prize for detailing the structure of the nervous system and identifying these neuron types. And in the last 10 years, there's been a revolution in how we define cell types molecularly. And for the first time, we've censused the entire mammalian nervous system and have all of the cell types. And I think that's really going to open up doors for research in the future.
Okay. Thank you. And I have one last question. Do you have any advice to current PhD students or master or bachelor students who would be interested in doing research?
Yeah, I think it depends on what stage you're in. But at the end of the day, I would say, trust your instincts. It should be fun, it should be exciting, and you should like the people that you're working with. And if you're not finding that, it's not you, it's the situation. So make sure, don't compromise on fun, inspirational work and the people you're working with.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Professor Scott, for joining. It was a really enjoyable conversation for me. And I'll see you next episode, I guess.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for chatting.